Chuckles. What's your name?
Oh, it's Bing, sir. I'm sorry. I was just...
No, I heard what you said. Funny. I like funny. Oh, well, this team's about hard work, but it's also about having fun. Good to have you aboard. Bing!
Welcome to Something Crunchy, the Valley's #1 comedy entertainment podcast. Biscuit is homies with Blake. Blake is the older brother of Blair. And Blair is married to Biscuit. Here are your hosts, Cullen Blake with Blair and Tyler Dressel.
All right. Welcome to Something Crunchy. I'm Cullen Blake. With me, as always, Blair and Tyler Dressel. We have another very crunchy guest joining us tonight. You've seen him in movies like Raising Arizona, Christmas Vacation, and Drop Dead Gorgeous, shows like Friends, The King of Queens, and Breaking Bad. Please welcome Sam McMurray.
And it's live, huh? They're all there. All those people in the audience. God bless.
Thank you for joining us. How are you, Sam?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for asking.
Oh, we are excited to have you on. We've been fans of yours for a long time. Almost 50 years in the industry, and you're one of the most credited actors ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Somebody gave me an actual number once. It was like, I don't know, on IMDb, something like 140 something. I don't know.
I couldn't count that high.
Yeah. I'm afraid it's. I'm in the middle of a long line of thespians. My parents were actors, and my eldest daughter, is an actress in New York, and my younger daughter is the only one to have escaped, the family disease. So we think she's actually adopted.
Not the family business, the family disease.
Yeah. It'll be 50 years as of next year, which is astonishing.
That is
truly
amazing. All right, so which roles of yours do fans tend to bring up most often?
Well, of course, come Christmas, they always bring up the Chevy Chase movie, which I hadn't seen. I mean, I just went in and I worked on it for 2 days or something like that. And, but it's a perennial, right? And then finally, it must have been 10 years ago in New York, my older daughter, the one who lives in Brooklyn now, she rented it and we watched it for the first time. And I thought, meh, quite honestly. The shooting of it was terrifically forgettable, but, it's become such a favorite at Christmas time. There's always a check in the mail for at least $11.
Yeah,
so,
that's great. There you go.
But also, and it depends on the age, of course, of those people. The funny thing is I'm going to Chicago because I did an episode many years ago when they were all still alive of Golden Girls. And the truth was, I knew Betty. I had worked with her. I knew Estelle Getty because I knew her in New York when she was doing Harvey Firestein's Torch Song Trilogy. I was doing a television series with the late Ron Silver. Just stop me when I keep running off. And I knew of Rue because she had worked with my mom, and I knew her somehow a little bit socially. And B. Arthur, who was lovely. But the truth is, when I got offered the role, I did it because I wanted to meet Jerry Orbach, and he was on the show that week. And I doggedly pursued him, and he finally surrendered. We became good friends. So anyway, I'm going to Chicago to do, what's it called, the Golden something or other. And I was kidding with this gal who books me on this stuff and, did these autograph signings and so forth. And I said, well, I'll be the kid, won't I? Because I'm only 70. And they went, oh, no, there's a huge following, and most of it is gay, apparently. So I'll get a manicure and go to Chicago. But so it's weird. And I also did Friends, which a lot of people remember me from. And I had a series which, if somebody remembers it, I take them out to dinner, called Likely Suspects. This is 92, 93 on Fox. And this was after I had done the Tracy Ullman show, which was 3 years plus. And that was the first regular, it was. I had moved out here in 86 to LA from New York, and that was the first, series regular that I landed. And it was a great show, and nobody sees it. I don't know why. I assume there's some sort of tie-up in terms of the rights to it or whatever, but it's not syndicated at all. And I truly don't know why. There's a guy who calls himself Tracy Ullman, although he's not. but he's still very friendly. And he has actually posted certain episodes, or I've asked him, did you have such and such an episode, one that I'd forgotten about, or I have it on Betamax, you know? And he would post it or send it to me. I still have a Beta machine. I haven't plugged it in a while, but, you know, it's under the bed.
I love that.
You were a featured player on the Tracy Ullman show. Is that the connection to you being on both Friends and The Simpsons?
No, The Simpsons, that's the one that got away. Because we were all just doing it. Was this 87? Yeah. And The Simpsons was just used interstitially on the Tracy Ullman show. In fact, it caused a huge lawsuit.
Really?
Tracy versus Fox and Jim Brooks and so forth. But there was another animated series, and they would ask us to just come into the booth. We didn't go to, a sound studio or anything. We actually did it on the sound stage. We would just go up in the booth and, on a lunch break or coffee break and just lay stuff down wild. And I think I did one or two, but mostly I was assigned to another animated series, the name of which I have no recollection. It was sort of adult, sort of Jules Feiffer-esque.
Okay.
But, that's the one that got away because, of course, everybody made bazillions of dollars on Tracy Ullman. I mean, on Simpsons.
Right.
And Hank Azaria, who's a friend, he was at Fox doing, come on. Why can't I think of it? Age. But I knew Hank, and I was a little worried because I thought he was becoming sort of the poor man's Sam McMurray. He was always playing the jerk who's at the water cooler. Oh, God. And the guy who was the lead's name doesn't matter. Hank, you can ask Hank. Anyway, so he wound up doing all this sort of utility player stuff. And I'm like, I could have done that. And they go, no, you're doing this one, the one that no one will ever remember. So, oh, well. But I had fun, too, doing that. And then later I did Dinosaurs, which ran for 4 seasons,
Well, to make you feel better about The Simpsons, I mean, at the time of this recording, there have been a Guinness World Record-setting 953 guest stars, and you were the very first one. So you will always...
I am the first one, and I'm the only one to play, I don't know how you'd put it, a pre-existing character. I played this sort of combination of Engelbert Humperdinck and Tom Jones on the Tracy Ullman show, known as Gulliver Dart. And they brought Gulliver over to The Simpsons, and that was the first guest shot. And I'm the only one that's done that. I mean, other people, of course, have played themselves and so forth.
But not
that's easy, But I think I got to sing in it, too, which is always, fun for me, if not for anybody else.
Did you think when you did that episode it would turn into the longest running television series?
Nobody. I mean, literally, we were doing it for free in the beginning. And then they got up like 4 or 5 years running, and they got close to, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but if I am, so be it. They got to like the 100th episode, and some idiot executive at Fox, I know that's redundant, said, we have made like $1 billion just in merchandise on the show. And Dan Castellaneta, who is maybe the nicest man on the planet, and also very meek, though, but he said, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm not coming back until we get X amount of dollars. And everybody banded together, and they got paid, as you know. Kind of like, people on Friends.
Yeah, I remember when that happened.
And is it still going? Is Simpsons still on?
Simpsons is still
But not in
on.
production, I assume.
Yeah, and I know you're close friends with Dan Castellaneta as well. You once said he can do over 170
That's who I was speaking
unique
of just now,
voices consecutively. That blew my mind.
Danny's brilliant. They did a sketch once where Tracy was playing the bedridden mother of this, I think he was Ukrainian, actually. He was like a head waiter, and I was the sort of scumbag doctor is the best way to describe, the guy who was ripping everybody off. And I was in the scene. But so they said to Dan, give us a list of, the people or the voices that you can do. And he got to 175, and he wasn't bragging. He can do them all. And they said, that's enough. And the one I remember, and the sketch was actually very funny because he'd walk in and there's Tracy laying in bed, and Umi was her name, which I guess is, I don't know, Ukrainian for godmother or a mom or something. And he said, guess who came into the restaurant last night? It was Gregory Peck. And he walks up to me and he says, pardon me, can you tell me the way to the men's room? That fruit cup went right through me. And he would just go off like that. And I rather like my Gregory Peck, I must say. I got it from Dan.
That's good.
So no, he's astonishingly protean. He's chameleon-like, and he's from Second City.
Right.
Cool. And of course, I worked with a number of people who are from that group. Kevin Crowley and Rick Hall, and anyway, a whole bunch of them. Megan Fay, actually, not too long ago, which is actually, and Joel Murray, who I play golf with a lot, because there's been this meme of me from Frankie and Grace, where Megan, who is my long-suffering wife, because I'm a bit of a blowhard, hey, it's a living, she tells me to shut the fuck up. Have you not seen this? I'm sure you have, because I've received it about 6 times from, and I go, and actually, I'm terrible. I don't always watch what I do. But I thought, you know what, maybe I'll watch it. So I watched the 2 episodes I was in, and I thought, okay, it was fine. Like Golden Girls, I was the youngster on the show. But Marty I'd worked with in New York, I did a TV movie about Son of Sam called Out of the Darkness. And he's famous for not remembering, but it didn't matter. He's the best. And Sam Waterston, whom I've admired forever, couldn't have been nicer. And Jane was, very nice too. It was a wonderful shoot. And so I did a couple of them. But Megan is hysterically funny. Anyhow, so yeah, that thing has made the rounds. I mean, and it comes from and all directions, Somebody I went to high school just actually sent it to me today. And for some reason, it was in black and white. And I was like, don't you own a television set? Oh, well, Anyhow, yeah, so that was fun. And a lot of those connections are worth remembering, at least to my mind. They are,
of course.
Yeah, people know me from that. They know me from Friends. They know me from King of Queens.
Of course.
And every now and then, as I said, they know me from my own series, which was called Likely Suspects. And then I did, not many people remember this, but there was a short-lived version of League of Their Own. The same writers, Babalu Mandel and Lowell Gans, the same group, from Imagine. And I was cast in the Tom Hanks role. And I think we did, I don't know how many we actually made, maybe 9.
You made
maybe
6.
We did 7, I don't know. But Tom directed one of them, in fact, and we became friends because, apparently I don't think this is secret. Originally, Robert De Niro was doing Big, and he dropped out.
Wow.
And then Penny reached out to Tom, who she knew, I guess, and he came on, and she told me that every time she'd give him a note, he would say, "Oh, is that what Bob would do?" Anyway. So
I am so glad you brought up A League of Their Own. I had intended to bring this up. We have had a vicious, ongoing debate for years about the climactic scene in the film, and we'd love your take. If you remember, the championship game ends with Kit mowing over her sister Dottie, who drops the ball and Racine wins. Sad peaches.
Yeah.
The question is, did Dottie drop that ball on purpose? Coach, can you weigh in here?
I cannot. Truthfully, I saw the film once. The television series was just sort of an extrapolation, so we never got that far.
Oh, Skip, come on, buddy.
I can't help you with that. Who could you ask? Penny's gone, and geez, so is Gary, for that matter.
I know. Lowell,
and Gary I worked with before.
Lowell.
We're chasing down Lowell.
I also worked with Gary on Dear God, and I had a lot of fun with him on that. He was a wonderful man, just hugely funny. And I know I'm not answering your hotly debated question, but he worked with a guy named Jerry Belson, who, along with Jim Brooks, Gary and Jerry were partners. They did, I think they did Mork and Mindy, maybe? I don't recall. Anyway, but they worked on a lot of that. They did Laverne and Shirley, I know that much. Cool. And Jerry was the only person of equal stature to Jim Brooks, which was good because, Jerry always had a funny thing to say and invariably helped the show out. So loved him. He's also going. Jim Brooks still going.
Jim Brooks still going.
And so are some of the other writers. My friend Mark Flanagan, who I see all the time, which was a strange sort of coincidence. But we had written industrial shows when we were in New York together, and then he goes out to L.A. a little before me, and then I wind up doing Tracy Ullman, and it was kind of a happy happenstance, Anyway, and Mark has since moved back east, but I mean, I've been here almost half my life, and I'm still not sure, You still can't really find a good bagel anywhere or a slice of pizza that doesn't cost $300, whatever. Then that guy, what was his name? And now he's opened up a place here in L.A. because, late night guy, Jimmy, what's his face? Not Jimmy Fallon, the other one, Jimmy.
Kimmel.
Thank you. Is a big fan of his. So I went because I have a New York friend who also says, thinks she knows everything about pizza. We went there, and it was kind of meh. Oddly enough, I was disappointed. Oh, well. So I've been out here half my life, and I'm still not sure how to get around in L.A. It's all right. You know, we came out here at the time. I was married, and I had done a television pilot right after Raising Arizona, in fact. I came out here, and I booked a pilot. I knew the director from theater, John Pasquin, who later did very well with, you know, Home Improvement and a bunch of things. And anyway, so we decided, well, you know what? It's time to make the move. So New York in 1986 wasn't much fun, to tell you the truth. And I grew up there. It was just like, it was very unkind at the time, you know, so. And we wanted to start a family, which we did, and, you know, there they go.
Well, you made the right decision, and now you've done theater and TV and film. Let me ask you, which comedic role best represents your off-camera personality? Like, which of your well-known characters are you most like?
Well, not so much King of Queens, although that came real easy. I'd worked with Michael Whitehorn. Interesting. So what would I say? Well, actually, the character in Likely Suspects, and you'll have to look around to find it, is closest to me. I saw, parenthetically, that Richard Belzer just passed, and he was a wonderful guy. And he did an episode with my friend Stephen Root, who works more than any actor on the planet, and you probably know that, and lives down the way from me. So anyway, Steve and Belzer and Wendy Malick were on the particular episode, which I happen to have a copy of. And Belzer was couldn't have been nicer. Not acerbic, not what you might expect at all, you know? So I don't know. I mean, to some degree, I mean, you know, not Friends. Friends was just fun. And I'll tell you a story if I've got the wherewithal. When I first started, I first did a guest shot on Tracy Ullman. Then we were on hiatus for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, they made a deal for me to be a regular, which was great because my older daughter Hannah had been born, you know. So we go to work, and the first sketch I do is an odd piece in which I'm this father of this gal that this young man is taking out. And he tries to talk to me, but I'm so into television that I'm basically disconnected. And they get this 17-year-old actor, and he's terrific. And his name is Matthew Perry. And he absolutely nailed it. And years later, you know, I wound up being his boss on Friends, which was a lot of fun. And I haven't seen him in quite some time, but I knew Jennifer before that. I knew her when she was a brunette. It was a funny series called The Edge with my friend from New York, Wayne Knight. But what was her name? She had a name like Downtown Julie Brown, but she wasn't Downtown Julie Brown. She was an American comedian who I did work with, actually. Anyway, Jennifer was in that, so I knew her from going to New York when they would, you know, pile everybody from Fox into an airplane and do the upfronts. And I knew Courtney because she was a very good friend of my friend Rick Marotta, who was the drummer on the Tracy Ullman Show and later did very well writing the music for Everybody Loves Raymond and Yes Dear. Cool. Two shows which were created by friends of mine, Phil Rosenthal and particularly Alan Kirschenbaum. Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't know Matty LeBlanc, and I thought he was hysterical. He just kills me. I haven't seen him in forever, or Schwimmer for that matter. But I liked Lisa very much. It was just a wonderful show to watch, if you're asking me. Friends was great.
So that was a good experience to film. Has a stranger ever come up and asked you to smack them on the ass?
No.
No?
And that's fine. No, nobody's asked me to smack him on the ass.
So I'd be the first?
Nobody even you'd be the first? Sure. I'll do it telephonically. Yeah. But I do, you know, what do you call it? You know, the
Cameos.
I'm blanking. Thank you. And every now and then they say, will you, you know, give me a Bing shout out and so forth. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Happy to do that. Only did 3 of them, but I was supposed to be in 2 more. And it didn't happen for a variety of reasons. But they paid me. So that was fun. Nice getting paid for not working.
You also played a memorable boss in King of Queens.
That actually, when it began, Michael Whitehorn, who I mentioned before, who had written the baseball sketch I Like Some More, asked me if I would do it. And for some reason, damn it, I was tied up with another project, and I couldn't do it. So they got somebody else to play O'Boyle, and they hated him for some reason, maybe because it wasn't me. And they canned him, but I didn't come back until the following season. And unfortunately, that meant that I was just working for less than what a regular would make, if you will, you know. Wow. But through the years, I would do them, and, you know, it's been lovely. It keeps the lights burning because it's in syndication, right? You know, as is Friends. Yeah. Mom is playing, and I had a blast on Mom. That may have been my favorite bit of writing. I did 3 episodes of that. And I knew Allison somewhat because we were both in Drop Dead Gorgeous, which is actually a very good movie.
Yeah.
And she's great. And I worked with Anna, who I didn't know, but I really adored. You know, it was, anyway. And Jamie Widows, who I knew from New York when he was an actor and singer. He directed all the episodes, but he was in a show called Is There Life After High School? Now, why do I remember that, but I couldn't remember, you know. Anyway, that's the way it rolls.
Well, if we had Blair's way, we would have started with Drop Dead Gorgeous and stayed with Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yes.
Drop Dead Crunchy. Blair's been jonesing for us to bring up Lester Lehman. What a cast. That
Yes.
had to be fun.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. And I later worked with Will Sasso, who was really, really talented.
Yes,
he had
he
a
is.
short-lived series, well, not a web series. It was, and Guillermo Diaz was on it, who I had worked with in a crappy movie in Louisville. But he's so talented.
Really
as is
funny
Will.
guy.
They were all funny, and I had just come back from doing theater, which just about killed me. I went down to Alabama to do a friend's play because I thought it was brilliant, and I'm correct in that assessment. But I hadn't been on stage really in close to 20 years. And it was terrifying, you know. And, of course, that's where I grew up, but, you know, I ain't a kid anymore. But we got the play on, and we did it, and I came back, and I had grown facial hair for the part of, I was basically sort of a gravedigger, as in Hamlet. But I grew a goatee and mustache and so forth, and my agent was calling about this show that Will had. And my agent said, well, you know, he's got facial hair. And, oh, no, tell him to keep it. So I did 2 episodes where I was married to Jane, you know, sorry, from Saturday Night Live, Jane Curtin, right? I was her ex-husband, and she was a blast. And Will was great and so forth. So we did that, but the kind of the payoff of it is that, you know, when you're doing theater and you go up, as we say, if you forget your lines, you know, you're in trouble. If you do it on a sitcom, when there's the 200 non-paying knuckleheads eating candy bars, it doesn't matter, you know. And I was doing a scene with Will, and I was zipping along, and then I had this sort of momentary aphasia where I couldn't come up with the word for whatever, you know, baseball or something. And I sort of was hemming and hawing for it, and then I just turned to the audience, and I went, you know, they start in April, and they play through October, and, you know, okay, let's go back. And then we, you know, just did it again. But you can't do that in theater. I mean, you can, but it might throw the audience for a loop, you know. So anyway, and Will was on that, and he was terrific. And he told me when we were doing Drop Dead Gorgeous, he weighed over 400 pounds. So, which took me aback, because, I mean, he's a big boy to begin with.
Right. But
he certainly carried it well. And then he had that surgery, but, you know, good guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And who else was in that? Oh, a lot of people. Allison, right? Ellen Barkin, who I knew from New York days. And Kirsten Dunst, who actually bought my house before we did this movie. She was 17, and we were moving out of this neighborhood called Toluca Lake in L.A. or North Hollywood. And they wanted the house, and so we sold it to them. She actually couldn't buy it because she was only 17. So it was her mother, but it was Kirsten's money.
Right.
And then sometime later, I ran into her, and I said, so you're still living in Toluca Lake? She said, oh, that was a long time ago. I'm like, yeah, for you, maybe.
If it's cool, I want to give you some hypothetical questions using your
Oh, all right.
co-stars. Okay, just some fun,
Sure.
quick little game. It's time for the birds and the bees talk with your kids, but you don't really feel too comfortable having that chat. Which of these former castmates of yours are you asking to step in? Denise Richards, Jennifer Coolidge, or Linda Cardellini?
Not Denise.
Not Denise.
And I like both Jennifer. I probably would ask Linda Cardellini because I think she's just great.
She would
Period.
give a really good birds and bees talk.
Sure, she would. And, you know, and everybody can relate to her. She's so down to earth and, you know,
I'd
like
be
that.
receptive to
Jennifer
that.
is hysterically funny. But I would just go for Linda, I think, just top it. Because I did Freaks and Geeks with her. I forgot to mention that,
Sure
didn't I?
did. Love that show. I would have bet
Me
on
too.
Sam saying Linda Cardellini for that answer.
Would you?
Yeah.
Well, she was just a kid when we were doing it, and actually, I'm in touch with Sam Levine, who played my son on the show, or rather, quite honestly, I played his father. He just got married, and I see him in the neighborhood from time to time. He's a great guy. They were all really nice and talented. Jason Segel, everybody, you know, as Seth Rogen and so forth. So they've all done quite well.
Linda Cardellini, good answer.
Okay, so that totally makes
Okay,
sense. Linda Cardellini.
go ahead.
Okay. You've played a doctor many times on screen,
Indeed.
but you found yourself in an embarrassing medical emergency. Which of these former castmates are you getting to help? Bryan Cranston, James Franco, or Stuart Pinkin?
It's got to be Bryan Cranston.
He knows what to
I mean,
do.
I really like the other two, and Stu in particular. But I mean, I used to play golf with Stu, and he would ask me. He'd line up a putt, and he'd want to have a discussion about it for half an hour. Go hit the damn
Hit
ball.
that fucking putt.
We've
But
had
no,
on
Bryan,
Stuart Pinkin
Bryan was
before.
great.
He
Oh,
was
that's
fun.
right. I did Breaking Bad too. See, you reminded me of all these nice things. Yeah. That was fun. Yeah. So, yes, Bryan.
No, Bryan
Yeah.
Cranston would be
I'm
great in
going for the
emergency.
more sober people. Not that Bryan isn't silly.
He's played a chemist. That's got to count for something.
True. Exactly. There you go.
All right. You just started a new dream job and you find out all the employees are in a fight club. Since it's your first day, it's a rule that you must fight. Which fictional coworker of yours are you fighting? Doug Heffernan, Clark Griswold, or Chandler Bing?
Good question.
Well, interesting. I'd have to say Clark Griswold.
Fuck Clark. He's going down.
That's the best
Well, he's
fight.
also older than me, so I think I can handle him. And Kevin is pretty solid.
He is
not
solid.
terribly tall, but he's a football player. And who was the
Right.
last? Was who?
Chandler.
Chandler Bing.
No, I can't do that to Maddie.
Can't do that.
Yeah,
He's a
it would
sweet
be
boy.
Chevy.
It's Chevy.
The funny thing is, when I worked with Chevy, I knew he'd be sort of I don't want to say problem, but yeah, problem. But I had some
We've heard
ammunition. I said, this is so weird. We're standing on the set, and I said, I knew your brother. He said, really? Now, he has a brother. They're like Irish twins. I don't know who's older. His name was Ned Chase. And I went to high school in New York, Dalton, which is quite well known. And Ned, I think, was just trying to beat the draft. And so he had gone to Dalton prior to that, and they let him teach social studies. And he was maybe 2 pages ahead of us, But he was certainly nice enough. It looked a lot like Chevy, in fact. And the other thing I had was that we were delivered by the same doctor. I don't even know how I knew that, but I did. Because there was his name was Norman Plachette, and he was the father of the actor John Plachette and the uncle of Suzanne Plachette. Anyway, and actually had a great deal, his wife did, because she was on the board, of getting me into Dalton, because for 2 years I lived in Palo Alto, because my mother and I moved out there because she had a job. I hated it, and I couldn't wait to get back to New York. But when you go back to New York and it's the middle of the school year, you're screwed, unless you can get into some place like Dalton, which happened happily for me, because otherwise it would have been, 2 years of misery before I got out of high school.
Right.
And I had a great time. And I'm still friends with people I went to high school there with.
Wow.
So. Did I pass, or there's no
Oh,
such
no.
thing?
You
Oh,
killed
yes.
it. You passed with flying
Absolutely
colors.
pass.
But there's no such thing as Fight Club, right? Isn't that the whole thing?
Yeah, we don't
yeah.
talk
All
about it.
hypothetical.
You're just not supposed to talk about it, but everyone knows.
Right. Actually, I was talking about it the last time I did Friends was towards the end. I was talking about it with Jennifer. And she was very smart about it. And she was saying, because I think it's a brilliant film. And she was talking
It
about
is.
how nobody seemed to understand it, which was true. But we were shooting this episode and we went very late. And by this time, whenever it was the last season, I guess, my kids were teenagers. They had met Jennifer and the rest of the cast when they were little, but, it didn't mean anything to them. But this time they were like, oh, my God, it's Jennifer Aniston, right? So they were both allowed to bring a pal. So the four of them, but it's like 11:30, and Jennifer says, what are the girls doing? And I said, they're just in the audience. She said, well, bring them down. And by this time, of course, there were all these guys packing, these big beefy dudes with, and this being security. So they let the girls in, and I take them to the back to the makeup room, and they walk in, and Jennifer's just sitting there just by herself. And she goes, guys, what's happening? And they froze. I mean, it was like an oil painting, the old Lenny Bruce line. It was just, it was statuary. I was like, talk, girls, talk. Anyway, Jennifer was very terrific about it and just sort of eased their way into the conversation. But that was very sweet. And it was a fun show to do, as I said.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, you've worked with near everyone an actor would want to work with. Who have been some of your favorites?
Oh, wow. Well, you mentioned so. I mean, I love Bryan Cranston, and I did a couple of Breaking Bads. I just like him personally, and I admire his work and so forth. But off the top, Steve Root is, I think, a great actor, quite honestly. He's in everything. There was a piece in The Guardian about him a number of years ago saying, do you recognize this man? Because he does. He works more than any other actor in the world. He was in, well, he's great in the Coen Brothers in, come on, George Clooney's in it where they're all singers.
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Anyway, he's brilliant. And if you haven't seen it, just go watch that scene. He's in Office Space.
No, he knows
they stole my they stole my not his Speedo, the stapler, right?
Just Friends,
Dodgeball,
things. Office Space.
And then he worked and he's done, with Mike Judge. He's been in King of the Hill.
Yeah,
for 10 years, and they're bringing it back.
That is him in King of the Hill. That's right.
Dodgeball.
Sure,
he was great in that.
Yep. Oh, Dodgeball too. Yeah, he does all that stuff. Anyway, I think he's a great actor. There, I said. Who
Absolutely.
else? I think Wayne Knight is one of the funniest people on the planet.
Really?
I should come up with other people besides, character actors, I suppose. Somebody like Allison Janney is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And you could start a scene and just go anywhere. Many years ago, Jeff Goldblum and I auditioned together. I don't know how that happened for some play at Manhattan Theater Club, and we just kept reading, kept going and going and going. And neither of us had actually read the material, but we had this kind of wonderful mystical connection. I think Jennifer Aniston is a terrific actress, actually. For instance.
Yeah.
For instance.
You always worked really well with Frances McDormand.
No, I love Frances. Yeah, I knew Frances. Before we did Raising Arizona, we had worked together at a place which is famous back east called it's the National Playwrights Conference. It's also known as the O'Neill. Interestingly, I just went to a get-together of former O'Neillys. And my friend John Pasquin, who was a director that I met there in 1983, who was one who, hipped me to it, and I met him there. But Frances and I had worked at the O'Neill in, 84, 85. And then I knew her a little in New York. She lived around the corner from me with Holly Hunter. And you know that story, right, about Blood Simple?
No.
It was supposed to be Holly.
Really?
And she couldn't do it. She was on Broadway with a play called, I'll remember the name of it in a minute. But Peter McNichol was in it too. So I'm going to call, Beth Henley wrote the play. Can't remember. I saw it actually. But she was unable to do it. She said to Joel and Ethan, she said, you should meet my roommate. It was Frances. And, the rest is history. And then Frances came in. She insisted on auditioning. And by this time for Raising Arizona, she and Joel were already a couple. And he said, you don't have to read for me. She said, no, I'm going to come in and audition. She's a wonderful actress. And so she auditioned. They went, okay, you happy? You got the part, So
I read an article the other day, and the headline was, the first 11 minutes of Raising Arizona are the best opening to any movie ever made.
Pretty great.
That was an Esquire 2021.
Awesome.
Bold statement. Do you agree?
Yeah. Why not? I think that I'm biased, of course, because I haven't worked. I had the only improvised moment in it. In fact, I was just fooling around. It was towards the end of the shoot, so I was feeling comfortable. By the way, I thought Trey Wilson was also a great actor. He was Nathan, Arizona. But so we come in and we're doing the scene where I'm talking about how'd you get that baby so fast, and my kid Mordecai is writing his name on the wall. And I said, look at Mordecai, already knows his ABCs. And I had a handful of M&Ms. I was actually working. I just was sort of doing this as a kind of behavior, and I just slang them at him. I just threw them at him. And we were in rehearsal, and the crew laughed. And there was this like silence. And Joel and Ethan said, "Oh, you go outside." So I said, "All right." I went outside, and they talked about it for 20 minutes, and then they came back and they said, "All right, we'll keep it, but don't ever do that again because it wasn't written." So
I do that to my kid all the time.
Maybe that's why I never worked with him again. I don't know. Anyhow, but that was a terrific experience. That was the most enjoyable film I'd ever worked on. The whole tenor of the thing was great. They would do stuff like, and nobody was making shit. I mean, they weren't paying us anything, or whatever this, scale was. The whole movie was only budgeted at, I think, under $2 million.
Wow.
And it didn't do well, particularly when it opened. It became popular later,
Cult classic.
according, because it was really big at fraternities and on college campuses and stuff. But they would do things like, it was hot out there, as you know, being in Arizona. They would bring a stick bed truck out to the set, and it would be lined with like plastic garbage bags, and it would fill it up with ice at the beginning of the day, and then by the time lunch break came around, it was a swimming pool. Just pretty smart.
That's nice.
Anyway, it was terrific, and they were great, so can't say a bad word about them.
You did a good Gregory Peck earlier, and I once heard you do a Jay Leno impression that was so spot on. It was incredible. Do you do any other impressions?
When did I do Jay Leno?
It was in an interview. In context, Leno was saying you're television's next biggest a-hole for getting a lot of those parts. And you were,
Jay did, yeah. When I did Tonight Show, yeah. He was great.
You were making fun of Jay for saying that, and
I don't, I read they did that movie with Kathy Bates called The Late Show. And a guy named Danny Roebuck, beat me out for the role of Leno, and Betty Thomas directed it. And I read for her like 4 or 5 times. And I even called Danny at one point to help me with it.
Is that the one?
When we talked like that, it had that thing, with the big jaw and all that. And so I did that. And Betty said, I don't know what else to ask you, but I think it was Ivan Reitman was producing it, who went to the same college as me, oddly enough, Washington University in St. Louis. But he wanted Danny Roebuck. And so he got it. And Danny doesn't have a particularly big chin or jaw. They built this kind of prosthesis. It looked like Clutch Cargo, if you remember who that was. So I was like, okay. And then Stephanie Zimbalist is a friend, and anyway, I saw her this years ago. And she said, Danny Roebuck's really pissed at you. I went, why? He got the thing, he got to do Jay Leno and the whole thing, right? So I run into him one day, and I go, because we did a very funny pilot as a presentation called Scary Shit. But so I said to Danny one day, I said, why are you pissed at me? He said, because you got Herman Munster. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, all I ever wanted to do was play Herman Munster, and I go into audition for it, and they won't shut up talking about you. This is in 95. I said, oh, well, okay. And it was a much-needed gig at the time because it paid a lot of money. And I went to Australia, which was great fun. And I was Herman Munster,
Yeah.
The only problem with it was in Australia, but it's all changed now. This is, 27 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
It was hard to find cars that you drove on the American side.
Do you watch any current shows, or have you seen any good films lately?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, my favorite is The Bear right now.
The Bear is so good. That is such a good
show.
So
good.
Cocaine Bear?
Not Cocaine Bear.
Oh, man.
No. The Bear, which is about this Italian sandwich restaurant in Chicago.
It won a bunch of awards just recently, just after that one season.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it's done really well.
Well, they picked it up for another year.
Yeah.
And the kid who was on Shameless, who I thought was always good and was somewhat underutilized. He's great as the lead.
Yes.
Everybody's terrific. And there's this guy who plays, he's not really a cousin, but he's a family friend. I don't know, his name is something like Eben Reichbach or something like that.
I know the character
and
you're
his
talking
Chicago
about.
accent is so perfect that I could have sworn he was from there, but he's actually from New York.
Wow.
But he worked on it, I've been told, assiduously. But it's a great show. Everybody's terrific in it.
Everyone's terrific.
And I've been watching The Last of Us, which I'm told. See, I have some younger friends, and they hit me to stuff. So I watch a lot of. I run out of stuff on my, on Apple and so forth. I've seen everything. But what did I watch the other day? I shouldn't say this because I won't say it. One of those procedurals, and it was just so bad. It not only was it just poor in the execution of it, the script didn't make any sense.
There's
I'm like, well, what happened to the guy who was, and it's so weird. Well, they've been doing that for a long time because back in the day, in the 80s, when they were doing Hill Street Blues, which that was the second job I landed when I came out here. I was thrilled to do it. But those shows for a long time, they had no syndicated potential because they had stories that were arcs and went through maybe 4 to 6 episodes. And the syndicated people, of course, there's very little syndication anymore, but whatever they are now, they wanted just the one-offs, So every show had to be sort of self-contained. Now they've changed their mind about that. Now they want shows that do have arcs and so forth. So, Yeah. So what else do I watch? I mean, is there such a thing as network television anymore? There really isn't.
Not really. No, not so
much. I mean, my kids were laughing at me the other day because I still have DirecTV as well as Apple,
DirecTV's great.
And I said, well, how do you know what's going on in the news? She goes, well, I listen to, a podcast or I listen to something, on the computer and so forth. I mean, it's true. I mean, I think that the networks are fooling themselves into thinking that they're still viable. Yeah. I don't think they are,
TikTok's got the real news.
Oh, God. Don't get me started.
Yeah, well, you know what? Then you go too far to the other side. You go to TikTok or you go to, the other one that, what's his face, Elon Musk just bought. And I signed off for that. I was like, never mind, Quite honestly. And, if I go on, and I'm like everybody else, I go on and I hit Google and then I looked at this story the other day. It was about this man who brings home this dog, but it was really weird looking and he takes it to the vets and it keeps leading you on. And at the very end, it says this is fiction. The whole thing is made up. Yeah, and I'm like, fuck you. You read that too? It was a very popular story on Google, but isn't it astonishing? It's all just made up crap. I mean, it really, I do watch it and whatever. My daughter just did a series with, come on, Sam. She's lovely, Connie Britton, called Dear Edward. And she did 2 episodes of that, which is great for her, So, but the truth is nowadays, and I've been, I've suffered through this as well. And I don't mind saying this, and you can put my name to it. You deal with an outfit like Hallmark or Lifetime. They're not even going union anymore.
They're not even trying anymore.
They're not even trying. You're right.
Well, we try to play a game on every episode, and our Crunchtastic R&D department came up with something tastefully inappropriate.
Okay, inappropriate? That's for me.
Tastefully inappropriate. The adult entertainment industry loves to parody films and television shows, and when you have a filmography like yours, there's some overlap. If you'll indulge us,
sure.
We'll play in the style of Two Truths and a Lie, where I'm going to name 3 projects you were in. 2 of them have been parodied into pornographic films. 1 of them hasn't.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So can you guess which of the 3 weren't used as a porn theme? They do a lot of these.
All right.
And this was tiring research. All right.
I'm impressed, but I didn't know that anything I did was parodied into it.
This was intended to be guess the 1 of the 3 or 1 of the 2. There was too many. It had to be done this way. So of the 3, only 1 of them hasn't been turned into a porn. Round 1.
Okay.
Miami Vice, Hill Street Blues, or The Sopranos?
Well, Sopranos has been done as a porno, of course. The Sopranos, right? Something like that. So it's either Miami Vice or what was the other? Miami Vice or what?
Hill Street Blues.
Another. Oh, Hill Street. I would guess Hill Street hasn't been parodied.
Ooh, that is correct.
Wrong?
It was Miami.
I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
Miami Spice, and there was like a Sopranos or something like that.
Sopranos, right?
You're exactly right. Okay.
That was a fun show. Sopranos was fun. I was, living out here at the time, but.
All right, next one.
So
up.
1 for 1.
1 for 1.
Rocking it
Very
already.
impressive.
Batting 1,000.
Round 2. Party of 5. Who's the Boss?
Yes.
Or the Golden Girls?
God. Well, I would think Who's the Boss has been parodied. I assume Golden Girls too. Party of 5, maybe not. I'm sorry?
Unbelievable.
2
That's
for 2.
correct. I would have.
Okay.
I was certain there was a Party of 5.
I would wanted to steer him.
But there wasn't? Well,
No, there was plenty
it's
of
never too
5,
late.
but oddly enough, no
Right?
Party of 5 parody. There was a XXX Who's the Boss and the Golden Girls. Too many to count. It was actually disturbing.
Really?
Oh my God. There is like a full channel.
So are they all, like, all the actresses, are they all geriatric in the Golden Girls spinoffs or
I
parodies?
tried not to dig too deep into the research.
Yeah, there's only this.
Yeah, there's some versions.
Strictly too much information, yeah.
I stopped after only 8 or 9 Golden Girls. And
Right.
Party of 5 needs
There
to
are that
happen.
many parodies of Golden Girls. Interesting.
it was surprising. All right, round 3. He's 2 for 2. Christmas Vacation, Raising Arizona, or Addams Family Values?
Huh. I would think Addams Family Values would get a treatment.
Yeah.
I don't think Raising Arizona. Maybe what was the third?
Christmas Vacation.
I guess Christmas Vacation and Addams Family Values, but not Raising Arizona.
That is
No,
correct.
Raising Arizona must have had.
you
No,
got
must
it.
have had a
You're
parody
too
just
good.
for
You
the
got it.
title.
No,
You got
you
it.
got it.
You did it.
You're the one.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay.
Yes, there is one called "This Isn't Christmas Vacation," and then there's ones called "The Addams Step Family." And
Oh my.
couldn't find anything on Raising Arizona, and that kind of Raising Arizona. I felt like there's something.
Well,
to work
really,
with
the
there.
title just sort of begs for
Exactly.
God, Party of Five of Raising Arizona. Like,
I know.
Shocked right now.
I know what I'm working on this weekend.
Yo, we can
But
make
there
a
you go.
killer
You know,
porno.
Yeah, 3 for
a little bit of
3.
licensing, sure.
Blair, get the lights.
I wonder, like, of all of these, are any of them worthwhile? You know, I don't necessarily mean in a prurient interest, but perhaps. Although, you
In a
know,
pinch,
maybe
they'll
some
all
of them
do.
are fun. I don't know.
Do
Maybe
you have any
I don't know.
recommendations?
I don't know. I don't have the attention span any longer. You know,
Miami
the
Spice was
porno's got to
quality.
be like 90 seconds max. You know, and I got moving on. You know,
Miami Spice.
Miami Spice was quality. We got one more. We'll finish on the animated round. All Real Monsters, Bonkers, or Pinky and the Brain?
wait, am I supposed to pick the non-porno from that?
The non-porno from that.
That's
Pinky and the Brain, which was an absolute blast to do, I have to say. All of
Really?
those, Pinky and the Brain.
Gotta be.
What was the other one?
All Real
What were the other
Monsters, Bonkers, and Pinky and the Brain.
I guess, you know, you got me here. Maybe Bonkers and Real Monsters, but not Pinky and the Brain.
Oh,
So close.
they're all
Are
Real
these
Monsters.
animated pornos?
Yeah, these are
or
all
are they actual people?
animated pornos, I believe. All Real Monsters.
Really?
Too easy. Pinky Gives the Brain.
Oh, yeah.
You knew that was coming.
I saw that one.
And no Bonkers. The list goes on and on and on. There's a couple to choose from Freaks and Geeks. There's 21 Hump Street, Home Improvement Triple X. There's one for That 70s Show, The King of Queens, starring someone named Liz Taylor with two Z's.
Really?
Yes, there was one called Angry Beavers, but it didn't appear to be a parody. That was on the maybe list.
What wasn't Angry Beavers? Wasn't that an animated series?
It was, and I couldn't tell you if this was a parody or not. But I did see that title. Goes
I
on.
think I did one with Morgan Fairchild.
Really?
In fact,
Ooh.
she's great. Love her.
Well, that was fun, and thank you for being a sport. But before we let you go,
Oh, my pleasure.
any new and
I was so
exciting
close, huh? To get 4 out of 4,
I
but
know.
oh well.
You got a 4.
Yes,
That's
you
did
incredible.
The
Great
animated
job.
stuff, that's a tough one. You
That's
know?
that's a tough one.
Curveball.
Yeah, but I like Arizona. You know, did you go to the Waste Management, the tournament there?
I did. I haven't gone the last few
Have you
years,
really?
and I did go this year. Yes, I was there on Saturday, and
It looks Saturday. It looks like a lot of fun. Were you at 16? Were you know the
17.
stadium hole?
I was at 17, which is also like a stadium hole. Very similar.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nuts there. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, you see, they open the gates and people come rushing in like they're handing out $20 bills or something. You know, it's just wild.
It's like the running of the bulls.
It is. Yeah, it's nuts.
There's actually a really good series I started to watch called Power Swing. I think it's a documentary about
Full
these
Swing.
guys in the
Full Swing.
PGA.
Yeah, full swing.
Full Swing, right. And I was just watching it. It was great. And it talked to what's his name? He's a really nice. He strikes me as a genuinely good guy. He came in third, I think, at the Open. What's his name? I can't remember. But he's the one who took his shirt off on 16 when his partner made a putt. And his partner was kind of heavy. His name is Higgs, I think. He took off his shirt, so this guy said, well, I'll take off my shirt, too. And then he got into trouble with the PGA, but, screw them. Anyway, so it was fun talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Sorry if I ran on.
No.
You have been so great to have on. We sincerely appreciate your time. I really hope we get the chance to talk again sometime.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Blake. Thank you, Blair. And thank you, the third party whose name I never got.
Tyler.
Tyler.
sir.
Okay.
Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
We
We really
appreciate
appreciate
you.
it.
So much
Pleasure.
fun.
Thanks.
Talk
Have a good
soon.
one.
You too.
You too.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Sam,
Oh, fun.
guilty as charged with the stories.
Yeah, he really has worked with like everybody.
Yeah.
Sam's real Hollywood. He expects you to know those names in real Hollywood.
The hardworking men and women of Hollywood.
Sam's the shit.
Yeah. He was awesome.
Hot news. New dream car giveaway over at 8080. In addition to the 15% off you get for using code CRUNCHY, they're offering double the entries right now, all for a brand new supercharged Lamborghini plus $60,000 in cash. You do not want to miss out. Nor do you want to forget to check out somethingcrunchy.com, where you'll find every episode, our links for social media, and the Almighty Crunch Store, where you'll find all kinds of crunchy gear, showing that you are a proud citizen of Crunch Nation. Continue listening every Friday night at 10 p.m. on 97.3 The Rattler, 1260 a.m. This has been another episode of Something Crunchy, and as always,
Don't ever forget to live your crunchiest life.
And be crunchy to one another.
Please don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, and all that crunchy good shit. All episodes can be found at somethingcrunchy.com and on all podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.
Have a very merry Crunchmas.
nice.
Yeah!
That was great.